Hey, what's going on, everybody? I hope you guys are having a good day. I am Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World and the Black Business School, and welcome to Dr. Boyce TV, the home for intelligent Black people. I will give you guys time to come into the chat. I'm going to be real patient and let you all come in. I know that a lot of you have been very excited about this conversation. I mentioned it earlier on Instagram. My brother Nuri Muhammad from the Nation of Islam, he's a student minister, and I'll let him also give you the more appropriate title. He is actually coming to address a question and a topic that is pretty heavy in the Black community, pretty significant, very significant, very thought-provoking, and one where I think everybody's curious about this. And it has to do with Malcolm X. Who killed Malcolm X? Why it happened? How it all went down. And so before I begin, I'd like to welcome my brother. How you doing today, man?
Oh man, I'm fine, Dr. Boyce, and I want to say before we begin the show that I'm happy that Almighty God took you safely to Ghana and brought you safely back to us. You are such a valuable weapon in the rise of our people. We're thankful that you made safe passage there and back.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate that very much. And yeah, it was very eye-opening. I am not the same. I'm not the same person I was when I left.
Wow.
And so this public transformation that people are seeing, this is not pretending. Even I don't understand what's really going on, and I'll let you all know what it is when I know what it is. So as you come into the chat, please hit the thumbs up button. Shout out the city that you're from. I see Chris Brown is from Gary, Indiana. I see Pure Black is in here, and I see Anthony Miller, Anthony Walker and Cecilia Dillard from Detroit. Shout out your city. I see Cape Verde, Africa, Baltimore, Antonio from Charlotte, Unfiltered, Rizza Islam's uncle. Okay, yeah. We'll talk about all that later. All right, Anthony Walker, how you guys doing? All right, so let's get started. Let's just jump into the conversation. First thing I want to ask you, brother. Okay, so today you were on the Breakfast Club, which I think is great. I was very happy that Charlemagne had yourself on there. I was happy he had Minister Farrakhan on there as well. I remember because I remember them reaching out and asking for a contact with the nation, and I saw they had contact. Yeah, and I said, yeah, well, here's someone I know. Next thing I know, the interview was happening. I was very happy to even be a tiny part of that. And I think that they are doing a great job in terms of giving that mainstream media exposure to points of view in our community that don't fit with main, you know what I mean, with
yes sir,
right? And I think it's a great day because I feel that the Nation of Islam story doesn't get told by the Nation of Islam. It gets told by other people. And then when the brothers from the nation step up and say, hey, okay, we've got a perspective, people say, oh, we don't want to hear your perspective. We only want to hear our perspective of your perspective, but they don't want to hear the original perspective, which says right there that it's disingenuous. Can you guys speak to the challenges that you faced when it comes to giving a point of view that reflects, what's really going on in the nation, in the history of the nation, and things like that? How has that gone for you all, say in the last 10 years?
Well, it's an uphill battle. We have to fight and go uphill at the same time because we don't have access to the same platforms media-wise that the enemies that have continued to recycle the lies about the nation. One of the top lies is that we are the murderers of Malcolm X. And because they have access to these 6 conglomerates, these 6 corporations that own 94% of all mainstream media, these spin doctors, these architects of confusion, these social engineers that create the way people think and make people think that they thought it on their own. We've been the victim of this propaganda machine. And that's not just the nation. It's not just the story of Malcolm X, but every last one of our great ones that has ever come up to strike a blow for our freedom. We have never gotten the real, true, authentic translation of what they represent. We've always been given the authorized King James Version that's been translated from former translations, diligently compared and revised. The watered down version, the stepped on version, the cut version. We've never received the true story. So it is wonderful that you have a show like yours, a show like The Breakfast Club, that has this mass appeal of viewership, when we can cut out and go around or over these 6 conglomerates and get a direct plug to our people, and let our people discern, use inference, deduction, and reasoning, not function off the sound bites or the recycled lies, and not be lazy learners with a Google brain, but hear the facts that we have to defend ourselves. And I hope that not only will this show help us relook at the life, legacy, work, and death of Malcolm X, but we need to go and look back at the life, legacy, and death of all of our great ones in the past, because we've not been given their true story, where we can extract the power from their presence that we can execute in our lifetime the way they did in theirs.
Okay, everybody, in case you just arrived, I'm speaking with student minister. Is that the right title? Did you like?
Yeah, yes, sir. That's fine. Brother's sufficient for me, but that's
okay.
fine. Thank you.
All right, Brother Nuri Muhammad from the Nation of Islam, and we're talking about who killed Malcolm X, why it happened, and I encourage you all to come in with an open mind. I'm okay with you thinking whatever you want to think. What I'm not okay with is you not hearing all perspectives and all sides. And so as you come into the chat, please hit the thumbs up button and let us know that you're here. And so we're going to dig right into this. So first of all, I want to ask you, brother, what this topic's been hanging over a lot of people's heads for a long time. There's been a lot of discussion, rumors, innuendo in terms of what people believe happened. What has sort of driven? I mean, I couldn't help but notice that that you all were talking about it quite a bit recently, and before it wasn't discussed as much. What drove your decisions, for example, to go on the Joe Budden show and Breakfast Club, et cetera, to address this issue now?
Originally, of course, there's a series out on Netflix right now called The Godfather of Harlem. And unfortunately, again, because we are lazy learners and not paying attention, we didn't look at and read the disclaimer when they started the series, and it said events have been fictionalized for dramatic effect. Now, I don't know about you, Dr. Boyce, but the definition of fictionalized means that somebody's lying. Events have been fictionalized for dramatic effect means that we are lying about aspects of the life of Bumpy Johnson as he interacted with Malcolm X to make the show more exciting. And whenever you watch the show, they have an artificial made-up relationship that Bumpy Johnson had with Malcolm X. And then they have him, Bumpy Johnson, using Malcolm X and the FOI kind of like enforcers or hitmen on behalf of the cause of Black criminality. And in it, they paint the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as a envious and jealous teacher of a student. And they keep dropping seeds about we are the ones that killed Malcolm X. So Joe Budden asked a question to one of his co-hosts, and the co-host said, y'all know, we know who killed Malcolm. We know who killed him. And Joe Budden said, no, I don't know who. And he said, the nation. And then, of course, Joe Budden said, well, can it be proven? He said, yeah, you ain't seen the movie. You know, we ain't, I mean, come on, man, we in school, we seen them. You ain't read the book and so. So anytime that one of our illuminaries in media and once in hip hop can come to a conclusion that I'm getting ready to say the nation killed Malcolm, or anything for that matter, based upon something that Hollywood put out, is a sign that we have to get on the offensive. So we were blessed. Brother Joe Budden brought us on. We presented some facts, and Brother Amal, he apologized and said, man, I was the victim of a lie. I received the authorized King James Version, not the real life of Malcolm X. So that's how it went, because in this movie, The Godfather of Harlem, they are trying to paint an illusionary concept of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, who was the only, show me another leader on the planet that would take a person in prison, and whenever he writes the honorable Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, he sends back handwritten responses and puts money in the envelope every time. guiding him on what to study. And when Malcolm X is released from prison as a convicted felon, he promotes him to a minister and ultimately to the national representative. Show me another Negro organization or Negro leader that'll take somebody out of jail, communicate with them while they're in jail, give them money and guidance, and when they get out, make them the VP or the CEO or the head of a chamber. But that's the kind of love the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had for Brother Malcolm. But it was depicted in the movie. And really, that disclaimer, Dr. Boyce, events have been fictionalized for dramatic effect. Not only should that be on The Godfather of Harlem, that should be on the movie Betty and Coretta. That should be on the movie Malcolm X, and really should even be as an introduction to the autobiography of Malcolm X, written by Alex Haley. Because now they found 3 weeks ago, New York Times reported in an article that there are chapters that are missing from the autobiography of Malcolm X that they purchased and now have in the Schomburg Library in New York. And in those chapters, Manning Marble, who wrote the book Malcolm X, the reinvention of Malcolm X, he was privileged to read 3 chapters for 15 minutes by the lawyer in Memphis that owned these copies. And he said, when he got finished with that, he said, I know for certain the Nation of Islam had nothing to do with the murder of Malcolm X. It was much bigger than that. So question, why then do they continue to recycle the same lie? And it, unfortunately, is because they have always been able to, anytime a great prominent Black figure has arisen from among us, they've always been able to find a volunteer, self-appointed, pro bono Negro defense attorney or a paid Negro as a living man to attack another living leader. But with this man, Farrakhan, that's been on this battlefield now for 65 years, they couldn't raise a Black leader to attack him and be effective. And even the great white minds have not been effective. So since there hasn't been a living Black or white person that can contend with the mind of Farrakhan, they have to resurrect Malcolm from the dead and use him as a weapon against the affinity Black people have for him and the affinity Black people have for the nation. Make you love Malcolm and then say the nation killed Malcolm. And then, of course, for every action there is in nature is equal and opposite reaction. So if I've learned to love Malcolm and I find out y'all quote unquote killed Malcolm, then I grow the opposite equal reaction, which means I develop hatred for Farrakhan, hatred for the nation. That's the scientific plot of this propaganda machine.
Okay, all right. Well, everybody who just tuned in, I'm speaking with Brother Nuri Muhammad, and we're talking about the death of Malcolm X, a very serious topic in our community, and who killed Malcolm X and why. If you just came in, please hit the thumbs up button. Hit that thumbs up button. Very important to grow independent Black media. Also, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. And also, I want to say thank you for your donation, Donnie Nolan from Nolan Lawn Care in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Nolan, Nowlin, Lawn Care in Tulsa, Oklahoma. If you have a business, you put a little donation in the chat. Put the name of your business and I will shout out your business. So it's very low cost advertising in exchange for support for the channel. Everybody's welcome to do this. First of all, I want to ask everybody a question. Give me your response in this. I'm gonna tell you what my position has been on this. Because brother, I'll be, I like to be as transparent as I can be about my point of view. Can't be totally transparent because sometimes I have thoughts and things I've said that I shouldn't say, right? But I'll be as transparent as I can be on this. I heard a lot of the stories a long time ago. And you know how much I love the Nation of Islam. I love the minister. The NOI is going to do the security of my wedding.
That's right.
I feel that the NOI does things for our community that nobody else will do. They have accomplished things that nobody else can accomplish. There's an ideology there that is not matched by anything anywhere in our community. Nobody can clean up a Black man like the NOI can. Give me a yes or no in the chat if you agree and you understand where I'm coming from. If you have infinite respect and appreciation for what the nation does in your community, say yes in the chat or say thank you. Shout out your respect for the Nation of Islam in the chat. Please, let's do that before we have this conversation. Now, with that being said, I'm not stupid either, you know, and I know that things happen. I know that people get into disputes. And I just made the decision that I'm not going to make a choice. You know, you have all these situations where, you know, let's say it's, you know, Umar Johnson doesn't like Boyce Watkins, and you know, and somebody says, well, I like Umar, I like Boyce, and I always said, don't make a choice. This ain't, this is between us. If it is between us, you know, I choose not to really even participate, but don't make a choice. If both of us offer you something of value, then just say, you know, that's between them. You don't have to make a choice. So I say that because that had been my conclusion, that whatever happened, I wasn't there, I don't know, but I never made a choice. And you ain't gonna make me. There's no way you can make me unlove the minister and what the minister and what the nation and what Elijah Muhammad and yourself and people like Vicky Dillon and Brother Wesley Muhammad have done for the community, because you don't see that anywhere else. And I make that quick point because I now want to hand the ball back to you, but I make that point to everybody to understand why we're having this conversation, because I think the community wants to know. But I don't think we have to make a choice, you know. So if you're coming in with hateful comments based on what you think, I can't connect to that. So with that said, let's dig into it. So brother, you went on Joe Budden's show, and you had a lot of information that really perked up my ears. That's why I texted you and said, hey, would you like to come on? Can you tell us some things that we may or may not know about what happened in the death of Malcolm X? Feel free. The floor is
man. Beautiful. Well, this is, and that was another hang up we had with this Godfather of Harlem. They tried to undermine the source of the transformation power that the Nation of Islam has. They showed in this series that the way we got people off of drugs is by bringing them inside of the mosque, taking them upstairs, and chaining them to the bed. We've never transformed a human being by chaining them to the bed. We transform human life by putting knowledge in their head. That's what we've been able to do. So what we were asking the listeners to do, and we ask today, is don't be a lazy learner. Do your own research. Now you have, through the Freedom of Information Act, you have access to the counterintelligence program memorandums of J. Edgar Hoover. Now, I don't know about y'all, but that's just off the name of the counterintelligence. That within itself is a red flag. What kind of program? The word counter means against. You got a program that's against intelligence in 1956. And when you read those documents, you'll read the field officer, the head of the field office in Chicago, writing to the field office in New York, bragging about how we've invested more money and energy in creating division between Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X than any other person in the past, celebrating, taking credit for the assassination of Malcolm X. When Malcolm X was assassinated in the Audubon Ballroom, do you know, Dr. Boyce, this was the first time on February 21st, 1965, out of the thousands of times that Malcolm X had spoke, this was the first time he didn't have a search procedure. He just spoke 3 days before this in Detroit, and 3 days before that, his house was just firebombed. But on this day, February 21st, his head of security was a man named Gene Roberts. He talked Malcolm X into not having a search procedure, and Gene Roberts told all the soldiers that were protecting Malcolm's life, do not bring any weapons this day. For the first time, the media was put off to the side when Malcolm X was speaking instead of in the front row where they normally were. Guess who was in the front row? The two shooters. Now, if the two shooters came and brought guns in and nobody knew there wouldn't be a search procedure except for those that were inside Malcolm's camp, question is, how did they know they could bring the weapons and nobody would search them and they can get in? How were they able to get to the first row where the media normally is? And then we found out, 2020 did an interview on Gene Roberts later on in life. He cried on television and said he worked for the NYPD and he was an FBI informant who was also used in the Black Panther Party and the BLA, as well as in the Mosque Incorporated with Malcolm X. His job was to facilitate an environment for the assassination of Malcolm X. Whenever he seen Malcolm X get shot. Gene Roberts did not come to cover the wounds. He came and gave the man mouth to mouth. He said, I was giving him mouth to mouth to make sure he died. The worst thing you do to a gunshot victim is give him mouth to mouth. So Malcolm X was not killed by the FOI. Malcolm X was killed by the FBI. 3 men arrested, 3 men locked up and put into prison. Only one of them admitted to doing the shooting. The one that they arrested was named Thomas 15X Johnson, Norman 3X Butler, and the man that admitted to shooting, his name was Thomas Hayer or Talmadge Hagen. Now he got 2 different names. And if you notice, Dr. Boyce, you got a Thomas 15X and a Norman 3X, which is the X is what you get when you join the nation. When you're an official member, you get an X to cross out your slave name. Why come Thomas Hayer didn't have an X on his name? I read the affidavit where he, his mother, and his cousin took the witness stand, and they testified that I was not in the Nation of Islam. So 2 men went to jail that had nothing to do with it. Thomas Hagen said that the 2 men you've arrested were not even at the Audubon Ballroom. I'll give you the 2 names. I used to meet with them. It was Lee, it was Will, and it was a man named Ben that we used to meet in their house, and we were the ones that organized this assassination. So when the math is done with a little bit of inference, deduction, and reason, go dig up the files and read what the FBI glorified in whenever Malcolm X was assassinated. And you'll find that we weren't the ones that killed Malcolm X. His daughter, Ilya Shabazz, has done several interviews saying she knows that it wasn't the nation that killed my father, because my father was being followed in Mecca in 1964. And he wasn't being followed by black men in bow ties. He was being followed by white men in 3-piece suits from the CIA. My father, she said, when he landed in France, was not allowed to get off the plane in France from an executive order of the French president, who did not want Malcolm X assassinated on French soil. Look at that, man. We're not in France, and we don't have the juice to call the French president in the nation. So the math tells us, when you do a little bit of computation, a little bit of math, no, Malcolm X was not killed by the FOI. Malcolm X was assassinated by the FBI. But since the COINTELPRO, U.S. government, J. Edgar Hoover, the government then, the government now, didn't like Malcolm X nor the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, why not do what they said in their document? Let's get 2 birds with 1 stone. Kill Malcolm, get him out the way, blame the nation that makes black people have a hatred for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so far, by recycling this lie every 10 or 15 years, we've been hearing everywhere we go, didn't y'all kill Malcolm? No, we didn't kill Malcolm. Malcolm X was killed by the United States government, and it was blamed on us. Do that math, and you'll find that the same government that had the Tuskegee experiment and injected 400 to 600 black men with syphilis, that same United States government that dropped bombs in 1921 on Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that same U.S. government that sanctioned slavery, suffering, and death and made lynching legal, that same U.S. government that did all of that to us as a people has also done this to Malcolm X and recooked the books. But if you get that COINTELPRO, go look it up. You'll have the receipts to verify what I'm saying.
All right, everybody. If you just came in, I'm speaking with Brother Nuri Muhammad, and we're talking about Malcolm X and who killed Malcolm X and why. If you just came in, also, please hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please do that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so that we can actually expand Black media. If you'd like to be part of our group that supports our expansion, feel free to go to intelligentblackpeople.com. That's intelligentblackpeople.com. All right, so I'm looking at some of the comments here, Brother Nuri, and I got something in my email today from somebody who, if I'm not mistaken, it was an interview with Betty Shabazz that I don't think was favorable in terms of, supporting the nation's argument about who killed Malcolm X. Now, are you familiar with that? Are you familiar with some of the other stories that people have said in terms of blaming the nation or why they might have done that? I'd be curious to know if you have sort of any direct information or evidence to kind of refute some of this. When you have people that, you know, were close to Malcolm who say, oh no, the nation did it, they did it, you know, and this is why. How do you kind of respond to that? Like, do you ever run into those individuals, you know, when you're going around the country?
Well, we have, and so far, I've never met a Black person that we've sat down with this argument that y'all killed Malcolm, and they haven't left the table saying, man, I either disbelieve that you all did it, or I definitely, in a court of my own mind, I definitely have substantial evidence to produce what you would call a reasonable doubt. Betty Shabazz stood with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in the Apollo. Look at the beauty of this man. The minister had watched Sister Kabila, Malcolm X's daughter, coerced by a white man at her school to try an assassination attempt on the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. The minister, instead of prosecuting her, the minister came to her defense, raised funds, protected her, and exonerated her, and went after the government, at that time it was the FBI, trying to manipulate her into launching this assassination attempt on the minister's life. Look at the amount of love and look at the high percentage of Jesus that's in this man. So for those that would say that you have an interview from this one or that one, Adolf Hitler said it like this whenever the white scientists were all around him trying to figure out how he was going to be able to pull this lie over their blonde hair and pale skin and white skin was superior to Black, when all historical and anthropological facts and the facts of history show that Black people are the original people of the planet. So as he began arguing with his historians and scientists and anthropologists, listen to the statement. He said, I'm not worried about them. He said, all you have to do is repeat a lie long enough and it will become the truth.
Well, you know, to your point about the amount of Jesus in this man, you know, I've had a couple opportunities to sit with the minister, you know, one-on-one. And I remember once going to his house in Chicago, which I don't tell a lot of people this, but it was actually around the corner from the place that I lived in Hyde Park. And I remember, you know, talking to him about critics and how do you deal with critics, attackers, people that say things about you that aren't true, you know, things like that. And I remember being extremely impressed by the way he actually seemed to be able to accept that, you know, and to you know, push love back in the direction of tremendous hate. I remember him, he actually said, well, you know, he said, you know, Dr. Watkins, you can learn a lot from your critics, you know, because sometimes they're right, you know, and I remember I had to talk to him one particular time, the founders of the ADOS movement, you know, y'all know who I'm talking about. I'm not gonna say that name because I don't want to get into all that mess, but she said some pretty bad things about the minister, and I went personally to his house to kind of talk to him about it, and to make sure it was clear. Those are her words, not mine. I support freedom of speech, but eventually I had to get that off my channel because I didn't want to be connected to that kind of chaos. And I remember being really impressed by the fact that he not only said that what she said was okay, but he said encourage her to keep speaking. And I said, you mean encourage her to keep talking? Because I think she's crazy. I ain't gonna lie. I was sitting there thinking, like, I'm not gonna encourage none of that. But I just remember thinking, wow, you know, wow. I mean, you have to be in an elevated place to be able to take that kind of vitriol and you know, continue to do what you're doing. So okay, so let me ask this. You know, one of the things that got my attention on this issue in terms of this, just the depth of debauchery that our government is capable of, is the death of Martin Luther King. You know, I don't know if everybody listening, I don't know if you guys know that whole story, but that whole story has been really flipped on its head. You know, that whole idea of the lone shooter, the one crazy white man that pulls the trigger. One of Martin Luther King's best friends has spent 40 years investigating exactly what happened. And what was really fascinating to me was that the government spent about 2 years at least preparing every intricate detail of his death. and doing everything they could to distance themselves as far as possible from what
Yes.
actually happened. I mean, I was stunned when I read that story. And so, don't you think it's possible that this also happened with Malcolm? You know,
Yes.
so let me ask you this: in terms of the Freedom of Information Act, you know, and what the government did at that time, what COINTELPRO operations were in place, things like that. How much of that information is available to the public for people that want to go do the research? And has there been any information that has not been made
Yeah.
available to the public?
And there's thousands of documents that have been concealed under what they call Section 7. And then even some of the documents that you'll read on COINTELPRO, you'll see black marker crossing it out, and they have it labeled national security or top secret. So the cry and the call from the minister has always been, open up the files on Malcolm X. See, the question is, think about this, Dr. Boyce, and those in the audience. They started wiretapping the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad on January 4th, 1957. And they had the Honorable Elijah Muhammad under 24-hour surveillance. This is 8 years before the assassination of Malcolm X. And you mean to tell me you've been listening to a man's conversation publicly and privately for 24 hours a day for 8 years, and you don't have no recording of him saying to kill Malcolm X? Where's the documentation that supports the cry? And if you had evidence, why come the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was never interviewed, investigated, or never brought to court? So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to us at that time in the nation, he said, leave Brother Malcolm alone, do him no harm. Now, in 1975 and behind, we had an absolute loyalty to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Whatever he said to do as the messenger of God, we took it as an order from God, and to violate the word of a messenger is to disobey God. So there was a 100% loyalty to every instruction the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave. Well, if he said leave him alone, then what would make you think that somebody within the ranks would violate a direct instruction from the man they believe to be the messenger of God? If they had him under surveillance from January 4th, 1957, all the way through his life among us on this side, then how is it that they don't have any record of him saying, do something to Malcolm X? Again, but we have their record. And even without them opening up the thousands of files that they are hiding, you can look at so many statements where they are verifying the glory, praise, and taking credit for the assassination of Malcolm X. Think about this, Dr. Boyce. It was 5 points that they had in COINTELPRO. These were the 5 goals of COINTELPRO. Number 1, prevent the rise of a Messiah that would come up among us as a people and electrify and unify us as a people. They had, J. Edgar Hoover had 4 candidates, as you were talking about the assassination of Dr. King. One was Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture. They said he was very charismatic, young. He was a candidate. The other was Malcolm X. And they said about him that he is a martyr of the movement. You calling him a martyr of the movement and he's alive? Think about that.
Interesting.
Number 3 was Dr. King, and they say he would be the most viable of the candidates should he abandon his white liberal doctrine. And then number 4, they had the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as the candidate for who the Messiah would be. Now, anybody that got any sense know that when you research the life of Kwame Ture or Stokely Carmichael, he calls the Honorable Elijah Muhammad his spiritual father. He calls himself a product or a fruit of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So if you got 4 people, and one of them is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, 2 of them are the fruit of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and only the other one is Dr. King as candidates for the Messiah. Wouldn't it make sense that if a man can produce 2 people that you deem to be the candidate for the Messiah, and he also is in that equation, maybe they already knew that he was that, and they didn't want to put that out in public record. So the ultimate aim of this world has always been to kill the messenger of God. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad is that. The minister is that. So their aim has always been that. And they, in the COINTELPRO, document everything they did to keep the division between Malcolm X and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, drive the wedge deeper and broader, and make Malcolm want to leave the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But most people don't know that before the Honorable Elijah, or before Malcolm X was assassinated, he was writing letters to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad requesting to come back into the ranks and apologizing. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad told him, he said, brother, just if you put out some of those fires that you have started, we'll receive you. Who knows on February 21st, 1965, whether Malcolm was going to take the stand and start putting out fires because somebody opened fire on him. Not the nation, but it was the government of the United States that killed him. And in their writings from their Chicago field office, going to New York, they said that we can use this assassination favorably for us to get, this is their words, 2 birds with 1 stone. And we know who the 2 birds were they were talking about. We get rid of assassinating the character named Malcolm X, and then say the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did it, and we assassinate the character of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So it's a trick, brothers and sisters, to try to demagnetize your love for the minister and demagnetize your affinity for the nation. Isn't it something that every Black organization, you just read the COINTELPRO. Look at what they did to SNCC. Look at what they did to CORE. Look at what they did to the Black Panther Party. Look at what they did to the Black Liberation Army. Look at what they did as a government to break down and destabilize and destroy all Black organizations that were trying to make us some proud, powerful, and productive people. And then you look at what they did in the nation and ask yourself the question, how is it that all of those organizations were killed by the government and have never come back strong again, but here we are, the Nation of Islam, still in existence? Question, what power is backing us that caused us to be still here? It's that same power that gives us the ability to transform human life. God is with this little group called the Nation of Islam. We didn't kill Malcolm X. The government killed Malcolm X, blamed it on us to keep you from being a part of the ultimate salvation of our people that came from God through the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So keep researching, keep digging. And by the grace of God, and I know it's hard, Dr. Boyce, you know, you remember that old saying, the best place to hide something from a nigga is to put it in a book?
Yes.
Do you know why the slave master could say that with confidence? It's because what they've developed in Black people, we have a phobia for reading now. What is a phobia? A phobia is a present day fear based upon a past bad experience. When we were in school and we read about ourselves, Black history is number 1, it's just a month. Number 2, it's the shortest month of the year. And we got the longest history of any people. Number 3, when you read Black history, it's always Martin Luther King as the main dish. You might get 4 tablespoons of Harriet Tubman. You might get a couple of ounces of some Frederick Douglass. And if you get real deep, you might get you a shot glass of Malcolm X. But all Black history has been in our school system, has been from the plantation to the present, from the cotton field to the current. It's always starting with slavery and then coming up to now. We've never been taught about ourselves before we were kidnapped and westernized and Caucasianized. So in our mind, I don't want to read nothing about my history, picking up a book, reading my history, because every time I read it, I'm looking at a man in burlap working from can't see morning to can't see night for free, living in a mud hut, letting somebody rape his woman. I don't want to read about that. Then we get to religion when we open up the books of religion and all the images we've been given of the angels, the disciples, Jesus, the prophets have always been white. So in our mind, I don't want to read. So we have a phobia right now of reading books. But I suggest to us, brothers and sisters, do not be a lazy learner with a Google brain and allow this enemy to feed you sound bites from a Negro mind or a white mouth. Go and research for yourself you go and look up the 5 points of COINTELPRO. Prevent the rise of a Messiah. Stop all the nationalist groups from uniting from one another. Keep Black people from ever responding, retaliating with violence whenever we do violence to them. And let's keep them away from economics. Let's make them strictly a people that's focused on self-improvement. And last but not least, let's prevent long-range growth and development among young people. And you look at that agenda and tell me COINTELPRO is not alive and well today. They did it yesterday with Malcolm. They're trying to do it today with the minister. Let's not be bamboozled, hoodwinked, had, or took. Let's not be tricked, as Malcolm would have said it. Let's do our own research. And remember, any man that won't treat you right will never teach you right.
All right, everybody. If you just came in, I'm speaking with Brother Nuri Muhammad, and we were discussing the death of Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam's involvement or lack thereof in the death. He's given a lot of information here. He said quite a bit. And and as you hit the thumbs up button and the subscribe button, I want to ask you guys a last question here. You heard what the brother just said. You heard him lay out his argument eloquently. Did you learn something today that you did not know? Were you persuaded by what was said today? Give me a yes or no in the chat. Give me a yes or no if you feel that what was said today. And I'm asking this question because I want the brother to be able to go back through the comments and take a look to see what people are saying. Yes or no? Were you persuaded? Okay, Nate says yes. Claudette, yes. Bernard, yes. Truth makes me free, yes. Zabian, Sis Management, Billy Boy, Vicky Dillard. Of course, there's Vicky Dillard in there. Everybody loves you, Vicky. Tuan Burgess, Jaquez, Leslie Savage. Okay, all right. T-Jack says no. Okay, so it's okay to say no. Fred Woodward says no, but there's Sharika and I see you and a lot of other people saying yes. So the yeses are overwhelming the no's, but no's are okay too. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of thought is fine on this platform, but you must love Black people and you must respect the community. You must want to grow. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm just gonna jump out here and say, you know, when you describe COINTELPRO, I'll tell you like this, brother. When I look at the condition of some of our people right now, if COINTELPRO didn't do it, then I don't know what did. I mean, something did this. This is not natural. We are not in a natural state of affairs when you have, just among many things, young Black males being convinced to get addicted to these drugs that are killing these kids, you know, where the rappers are the ones telling them to go get high and drunk every day. That right there alone, let's not talk about the economics and the politics and the violence and all these other things. You could pile all that on. That'd be a whole nother conversation. But you know, I would be stunned if there was not a hidden hand playing a part in what's going on in our community, which is one of the reasons why I am inspired by the vision of the Nation of Islam. Particularly, for example, I visited twice the Muhammad University of Islam. And anybody who has not visited, I encourage you to go take a look, because all this chit chat they give you about how Black kids can't be educated. I'm gonna tell you, I went in there and saw some children that looked just like us, who at the 9th grade were thinking like graduate students, asking questions in the 10th grade that you would expect from somebody getting an MBA. I was incredibly impressed. And so then that begs the question, given that we know the solutions are out there, why is the ignorance that which is being widespread as opposed to the solution, right? Somebody wants that to happen, so we got to want something different. So I wanted something different, and that's why I'm honored that you came on the platform, brother. And I want everybody to know publicly, I ride with this Black man. Ain't nothing you can tell me about Brother Nuri Muhammad that will make me stop supporting him, point blank, period. So thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thank you, sir.
It's an honor to have you, brother.
My honor, Dr. Boyce, and I hope that our brothers and sisters in the listening audience will remember this principle: train up a child in the way that they should go. When they grow old, they will not depart from you. Your number one investment as a parent, if you're a real parent, see, a real mother and father does not want their children to be like them. A real mother and father wants their children to be better than them. So your number one investment as a Black mother and a Black father cannot be your 401k, your IRA, or your real estate or your savings account. Your number one investment must be the minds of your children. And if we make that investment, and we teach our children critical thinking, when they grow up, they won't be that kind of lazy learner with the Google brain that we're talking about that makes it easy for us to be deceived by a 400-year-old enemy and liar. And they will engage in the critical thinking process using inference, deduction, logic, reasoning, scripture, science, and history. And before long, we're going to see that there will be no devil that can fool none of us in the nowadays time. Thank you, Dr. Boyce, for allowing me on the show, especially when you told me this is for intelligent Black people only. I feel special now. I'm going to go and tell my wife that I've been called an intelligent Black man.
Yes, yes.
Love
right.
you, my brother.
I love you too, man. And I'm telling you, you guys, you are the trend of the future. So if you ever look outside and it doesn't look like intelligence is winning, it looks like ignorance is winning right now, just know that you are playing for the winning team, because it's only a matter of time before this becomes the norm all throughout our community. We're building the future now. So that's why it appears that we're ahead of our time. So thank you very much, brother. It's an honor to have you. And thank you all for hanging out with us. Hit the thumbs up button, share, and subscribe on your way out. Stop if you want to learn about wealth and economics. Get started for free at theblackbusinessschool.com. That's theblackbusinessschool.com. I'll be back a little bit later. I'm about to go spend some time with Alicia, and I will see you guys soon. Take care, and thanks again, brother. I appreciate it. All right.
Thank you, sir. All right.
All right. Bye-bye.